just to inform him 15 minutes before his intervention, and he will connect. So I think I have no choice but to reach out to him in a few. So I'm just looking at the chronology of the presentations. Yeah, so I think we could start, okay, as per the set timing, if you are agreeable, head of secretary and head of programs.
Oui, oui.
And then,
Non, non, ça, ils sont en train de faire un live
when
là.
the first presenter
Ah, le gars qui fait les trucs là hier, non? C'est lui,
starts,
c'est lui.
I'll inform Dr. Love to get ready. Ready to get
C'est lui
ready.
qui
Sorry.
embête notre.
Okay, Vinesh, this is fine with me.
Any questions from our speakers eventually before we start?
No.
No questions on my side.
So everything is set as no problem at all.
President AUA, I received your slides, but I would prefer that each one make their own presentation while this shared with me. You will have better control. Unless if it is technically difficult for you, then I will definitely assist you in your slides. Please confirm.
Yes, I just shared, so because I will speak in French, so I shared the English version so you can share the English version for English people speaking.
So what I would do, even the interpreters might be needing it. Let me share that in the chat if that works. Okay, they will tell me if it is appropriate for them. Let me check if it works. Yeah, I've shared that in the chat. So interpreters, you may have it, and that could be helpful. Okay, Mahama, do you have your presentation that you wish to share?
I will share with you the link.
Okay.
I'm joining this.
Okay, you can share in my inbox on WhatsApp and I'll drop it here. That's fine. Or I'll just share with the share it with the host and panelists. No? Secretariat, share.
Yes, Vinesh.
So it's 1 p.m. here, so it's time. So I stand guided by you when we are ready to start. Okay?
Okay, I think we will start in order to be mindful of the time. We will proceed with the program as you have developed it, Chair Ganesh. But I will start maybe with a very quick note of welcome to all of our colleagues, particularly to our dear panelists who have taken the time to come on this webinar today and share really important information that all of us need from within African civil society. This is essentially part of the mandate of ECOSOCC, is to ensure that we are bringing the input and the perspectives and the expertise of civil society, including from within the field of industry, to bear on the work of the African Union. We really want to take this opportunity on my behalf as head of programs and also on behalf of the head of secretariat, Mr. William Karu, who currently is meeting with the group of African ambassadors in Lusaka, but will join us ASAP, to Chair Vinesh for convening this important discussion, which we are very happy to see take place today, and to which we commit to transferring the outcomes to the policy organs within the African Union. So this is by way of welcome to all of you on the call and by way of thanksgiving dear panelists, and we look forward to a very interesting and interactive conversation today. Thank you so much. So let me hand back to you, Chair Dinesh.
Yeah, thank you, Head of Programs, Nana, for that introduction. So, a very good morning or good afternoon to my panelists, and as well as to the various participants who are connected online. So, without any delay, I would like to set the scene about the webinar we are hosting today, which concerns one of the most critical and of high importance to us at the level of the infrastructure and energy cluster. Africa is facing a lot of conflicts in many parts, in many regions. We do understand that inadequate infrastructure in conflict-prone or post-conflict zones create a lot of vulnerabilities. Recovery is very difficult. Peace-building efforts are very often, again, being challenged in many ways. So the issue of sanitation, health, energy, shelter, mobility, all of these are related to infrastructure, and here we're talking about the physical infrastructure. So with respect to the AU theme of the year 2025, addressing reparations, justice, and restoring dignity, okay, we believe that the theme and in collaboration between the infrastructure and energy cluster, as well as peace and security, for this very online event today is fundamental, because it's also a way to highlight that reparations are also important for infrastructure. We need to be able to restore also dignity with proper infrastructure, and so on and so forth. Okay, so this is how we plug it in with the theme of the year. So the objectives today for our session is to analyze what is happening, the nexus between infrastructure and peace building. That's fundamental, one. How we can elevate best practices and lived experience from across the continent. Our aim is definitely to use today's discussion as a starting point to formulate recommendations to head of states, amongst others. And of course, the very aim is to consolidate the very objective of ECOSOCC as a platform for civil society organizations, and how we can build intercluster collaboration and have more impactful initiatives here. So on the program, I would have wished to invite the presiding officer, Sissoko, Luis Sheikh Sissoko, but I think he is not yet connected. If he's connected, I would wish him to just flag or raise his hand. That's one. But otherwise, I would like to just directly move to one of our key speakers who will make a special remark, okay, who is Mrs. Nasik Abdelhamid El Said Osman. She's from Sudan, and she is the chairperson for Social Affairs and Health Cluster of the AU ECOSOCC. And the reason why we have invited her for a special remarks here is because she is a displaced Sudanese leader, okay? While she addresses how to bring a unique human and how to bridge the gap when it comes to all the challenges being faced in conflict zones, okay? And how this is hindering a lot of things. So I would like to hear from her, okay? I would like to invite her to intervene, share her own experience before we deep dive in the subject from a more practical point of view. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, this is my chance. Hello?
Yes, Sister Nasik, please proceed with your intervention.
Okay, this is my chance, yeah? I don't think I will, sorry, I will interpret my papers by English. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. President, Engineer Vanish, distinguished guests, thank you for this kind invitation. I am honored to be with you today, not only as the chairperson of the Social Affairs and Health Cluster at ECOSOCC, but also as a human voice carrying the experience of displacement and forced exile. I live the consequences of conflict as a carrying as a daily reality that has become both responsibility and a driving force for action. Millions are suffering from the cruelty of wars that destroy hospitals, cut off water supplies, and sanitation services in displacement camps and deprive children of their schools. Yet, I have also learned that investing in resilient infrastructure is an investment in life, dignity, and peace. Today, I call upon us to redefine the concept of infrastructure to be human right before it is an engineering project. Infrastructure that serves refugees, women, disabilities people, the sick, children, and the community as a whole. I'd like to emphasize a fundamental point. Countries must incorporate infrastructure into their national strategic plan, not only as a resilient infrastructure for their citizens, but also as dedicated structures capable of receiving huge numbers of refugees fleeing wars and environmental disasters from neighboring countries. These spaces must be equipped with the essential of life, electricity, water, sanitation, hospitals, and schools. These should not be temporary solutions, but permanent ones that preserve the dignity of refugees and grant them the right to education, healthcare, and decent life within the national system, not on its margins, in accordance with the political and humanitarian agreements that protect refugees in Africa.
Normally, webinars, people should start the camera.
My vision for just infrastructure is summarized in
Because,
three
we are doing live stream
essential
now, and
points.
viewers
Number
must to
one,
feel they can interact
resilient,
with the speaker. Otherwise, they will leave.
able
They
to
want to feel it's not like
withstand
a
crisis
broadcast
and
and listen.
resist collapse.
I think we should enforce it.
Sustainable. Number two,
I think we should enforce it to tell
sustainable,
people that if you don't want to
remaining
put your camera
functional
on the on camera,
and
it's really nice.
accessible
Yes,
during
but you have to
conflict
put your camera so
and
people can see
emergencies.
when you're talking. So people can feel,
Rebuildable
when you
and
sit back, when
recoverable,
you're watching, everybody
designed
can
from
see
the
screen.
outset to be
The
easily
interaction
and
is different
fairly
than
reconstructed
you don't see the
after
person, you're just hearing
disasters.
song.
This vision requires a smart partnerships with key stakeholders to achieve the following: integrating business continuity into national planning, including refugee-specific infrastructure in national planning, training local personnel in emergency response and maintenance, involving women, local communities, and the refugees themselves in creating solutions, investing in flexible, easily repairable, and rapidly deployable designs, strengthening partnerships and financing to accelerate reconstruction efforts. My message to you today: real infrastructure is not just what is built, but what remains standing and effective in the darkest times, and what can be rapidly rebuilt after a disaster. The continuity of services is not merely a technical issue. It is a humanitarian and justice issue and the starting point for building peace and protecting the dignity of the African person. If we want Africa to be resilient against conflict, we must place the human being at the heart of strategic infrastructure planning, in their vulnerability and in their rise. The human being comes first, then everything else. Thank you, Mr. Vanish, for this opportunity so as to express my experience towards Sudanese crisis. Thank you.
Thank you, Sister Nasik Osman, for your kind words and to attending this webinar today. And definitely there are a lot to look into when it comes to yourself as someone who is experiencing displacement in a conflict zone. So I believe in the next presentation, which will be presented by architect Muhammad Al-Hadi from UNHCR. He is specialized in subjects related to displaced people, not just in Africa. He has a huge experience, okay, in this field. So without spending too much time in introducing architect Muhammad Al-Hadi, I would like to invite him to take the floor here and present himself and then carry on with his presentation. And later on, definitely, we will open the floor for questions and answers with regards to his presentation. Muhammad, Mr. Al-Hadi, if you can hear me.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vanish. I'm very pleased to be here with you in this call. My name is Muhammad Al-Hadi. As Mr. Vanish said, I'm an architect from Chad. I'm working currently with UNHCR at the headquarters in Geneva, at Geneva level, as a senior cluster coordinator. So without further delay, I'm happy that I heard that my sister Nazik, she spoke before me. And I want to tell her that I studied in Sudan. I know Sudan very well. And when I see what it happened now in Sudan, it is not easy.
Yes, it's nice.
So I will go with my presentation. And first of all, I want to start with a presentation that I want to tell the story of this grandmother that I found that is very touching. You can imagine, I took this photo a long time ago when I was working in Nigeria. And you know, in northeast of Nigeria, they have problem with Boko Haram crisis. And that Boko Haram crisis affects a lot of people. According to the CCCM colleagues, there are more than 2.5, what you call it, 2.5 million that in need of assistance. So by doing her story, begin why I want to start with her story, because it's important to know that there are many people that suffering in the crisis, as Madame Nazik said, and she left her house or village when she lost her son, his wife, and 4 of his children killed by Boko Haram, and she escaped her village. And I meet her in Maiduguri, that the first time she left her village, okay?
She should be in.
And
Yeah. What I did.
she walked more than 1 month to reach Maiduguri, and especially she was accommodated in the camp called Stadium Camp in Maiduguri. And the camp was planned to have some basic services and about almost 55 hectares that is around the stadium in Maiduguri, and we planned this camp. So you can see here at the beginning of the 2019, in February 2019, when we start the camps, more than 2,500 households accommodated on that site, and especially most of them are women and children. And at the beginning, she got accommodated in the emergency shelters, and later on, she moved from the emergency shelter to a little bit transitional shelter that we call. But unfortunately for her, when I meet her, 3 months later, they already announced to them that the camp will be closed. And you can see in the pictures here, that the authorities closed the camp. And my question here to all of you, or all of us, what does resilience mean to someone who lost everything and rebuilt her life, and then she asked again to move forward? So I want to start by this story because it's important to put the things in the life of people, as Madame Nazik said. And as an indicator, when you see what happened worldwide up to now, according to UNHCR, there is 29 active situation now, and 3 future situation in general. Among them, almost 20 are located in Africa, and you can imagine the rest. We have more than 44 million people that forcibly displaced, okay? And that is the figures. And I leave you imagine if you recognize some of those flags here. We have Benin, Congo, Togo, Mauritania, Lesotho, Botswana, we have Rwanda, Gabon, Tunisia, Burundi, Mauritius, Gambia, Eritrea, Central African Republic, Equatorial, and Namibia, Libya, and then Guinea-Bissau, Liberia, and Sierra Leone. You can imagine that all those people, they move from their country, okay? And that is give you a figure in terms of the situation in Africa. So worldwide, when we look on the situation up to now, we have more than 123.2 million displaced people. Among those people, we have 73.5 million are internally displaced, and 8.4 million are asylum seekers. And then among those figures, we have 33.8 million are refugees. And you can imagine what it happened with Sudan crisis. 5.9 million are persons that in need of international protection. And then among those displaced, the 1.3 million that I was talking about, 49 million are children, almost half of those population, and 2.3 million are children, because children were born when they are refugees. The case of the child that you see here, I assist her mom to give birth in one of the camps in Cameroon. So I put this picture for you to imagine what it happened in such kind of context, the complexity of the context. This is in Rwanda, one of the festivals that they did in the camps. And you see how many young children are there. And they need food, water, healthcare, protection, and beyond the basic needs that the settlement can foster the infrastructure, the social exchange, the sense of the community. So it's very important to take this element in our mind. And sometimes our camps or our settlement start as a small core, but it developed to a little bit bigger than that. Similar, sometimes we have decentralized villages, a small village, and then the number increase, and then we go through those elements from time to time. So then, and sometime also we have satellite settlement or camps. So in one way or another, the things increase the number of the population. So we have to develop. And among the topography that we have, sometimes we have a corridor like the camp here in Cameroon, Borgop, that we have to settle our camps or the site. But before that, we have to look on especially about the water source, depending on the context. But it's very important to have that in consideration because those people will stay for long. So we have to look on their for the water that they can sustain for long. So it's very important planning for water access to ensure that those camps or site can grow sustainably, and then they will continue in that way. So other part of the activities that we have to take it in consideration, the survival activities, like in the top of the screen, you can see a white circle there. That white circle, it comes that we settle when the refugees, Sudanese refugees came from Darfur 2013, 2014, 2005. And then later on, we developed the camps, and you see down there the camp. So sometimes people need shelter. So when we have to find a shelter for them, and then food is one of the critical points. And you can see sometime in the desert how you sort it out, the issue of firewood and those kind of elements. The health, as Madame Nazik, as social and health, is very important to take health in consideration. And then beside that, the social exchange you have to take in consideration because those people they have their dignity, they have to exchange with each other, and it's a key element that we take in consideration the social exchange to develop their life and to continue on whatever that they're supposed to do. And the infrastructure as such, because here is a school, we built it in one of the camp called Kigeme camp in Rwanda. So the infrastructure for communities and all these things is key element that we have to take it in consideration. Also the road, the drainage, the water system, the health post, and so on and so on. The school is key element that we have to take it in consideration when we are developing that. I'm happy that Madame Nazik talked at the beginning, and I want to give my own experience because I start my working in the humanitarian part is in 2005 with the Sudanese refugees. At that time, from the crisis from Darfur, we have almost 350,000 people. You can imagine that the population now with the crisis happened is above more than over 1 million people that join, and they are in Chad now. Those 12 camps that I worked before, at the beginning we designed as a design you can see in the Mille camp, and then later on that camps increased because the population, and it came like one of the village that we have in Chad, and the similarity between Chad and Sudan that keep those people they came, and then they cross the area. And here we have a Kunungu camps, and you can see from the design up to the increase of the population. So that kind of the way of the design, it changed from context to context. It depends of the water, it depends of the services, the topography of the land, and so on and so on. And you can see how the population growth, the growth of the population within these 20 years of displacement. Here is another camps in the east of Chad, is Farshana camp, and again among the one that the 750,000 they camp, they stay in these camps. Another camps in it called goes Amir camp, and here is Uri Kasuni in the desert, but we found water close to the lake there, so the population we settle a population there in the middle of the desert. And you can imagine the situation in the middle of the desert. Another camp called Brejin and Trejin, so it's camps in close to Hajar Hadid, and so on and so on. So by giving you this element of those camps in Chad, that's the camp that I mentioned before, Erdimi camp. It gives you an idea about what we face as a humanitarian when we are walking in, this is Jabal camps close to Gozbeda, to give you the concentration, the people that are staying there in terms of services and activities. I wish to give that example from Darfur crisis and up to Sudan now, because it's one of the biggest crises in Africa. The people arrive, we give them, we settle, we put some transit center. Later on, we move to put some shelter with the plastic sheeting. And that plastic sheeting, as you see, is very hot, but one of the solution to put it on the ground. And then we try it. This is in Burkina Faso for displaced people in the Burkina Faso. This one in Cameroon. So we move from the plastic sheeting to something a little bit transitional, and we ask the population to mobilize themselves and build some of those kind of shelters with the traditional construction materials and also the roofing. So it will be a little bit transitional until the population will go back. This is the technique of Musgum Tukul. This is one of the solutions happen in Cameroon. Among the solution also for a shelter, we have the Erat Shoe. It's a refugees house unit that is built. But for Africa, sometimes it's not easy with the weather that we have, but this is one of the solutions that we have in Burkina Faso. This one, you can ask me where it is, this one. This one is in Iraq for Syrian refugees when I work there, and you can see the Kuwaiti, and we are talking about infrastructure. That is why I bring this photo here. There we develop more infrastructure. You have hot water, you have proper toilets and houses, and also roads and so on and so on. So this is one of the examples that we work. And another example from Jordan, we put solar for a population that in the camp. This is one of the biggest camp in the world called Zatari. And then the water, as I said, is one of the key elements that we take it in consideration. Without that, the people, they cannot survive. And then the school, we build it and we upgrade the school that we have in the host community by doing some infrastructure like that. It's the same here, some offices and so on. Here is the health center and so on. I will try to go fast on that, but telling you the experience that we have in terms of hospital, health center, and so on and so on. So all those elements contribute to the life of the people. But taking that in consideration, I want to mention other example, taking in consideration also the population themselves and how to involve them in the process of the design. This camp called Gado camp in Cameroon. We developed that camp for the Central African refugees that they came to Cameroon. We developed the courtyard and traditional Fulani layout. So they have their activity. The shelter support also with the livelihood, with the space for gardening, and also for the market. And refugees play the key role on the site activities. Another example I told you about Kigeme camp. This is in Rwanda, and the hilly space. So we have to develop a proper drainage that costs almost $500,000 because we know those people, they stay for long. So you can imagine that is the topology on that area, and we have to do some terracing and we have more than 15,000 people. We don't have the possibility to give every individual family what you call it, latrine for their family, but we put corridor for communal latrines. And the same later on, they developed the site with the mud brick and mud technology, traditional one, and they developed their side from the plastic sheeting, and you can see the camps from this side. We are talking about resilience, and it's very important to see also the positive side among those, what you call it, the experience that I had. I want to mention here two experiences. One of them with the Congolese refugees in Rwanda. We did some analysis, and that analysis where those refugees are coming and where we're supposed to settle them. And then later on, the existing town, the proximity of the site or the camp that we want to put it, and the villages that surrounding the area, and the impact of that site to the population. And then we went to do some analysis, topographic analysis, to see exactly where we're supposed to put the shelters, the public area, and also the recreation area, the distribution center, and all the services and the infrastructure. And later on, we went deeper to see exactly the development of the site itself, and where the school is supposed to be, and the health center, the hospital is supposed to be with the host community, and so on. And then we work in terms of development with a computer to develop some of those elements and to see the scenarios. Here, that the design of the school, and at the beginning, and then here when we implement that school. This is the camp itself based on the design we implemented, and it was a collaboration of the master plan approach that UNHCR developed at that time. You can see here the camps where the shelter at the beginning, and later on, after a few time, we move from the emergency shelter to transitional shelter. And taking in consideration this photo, I asked one of the colleagues to take it, the photo a few days ago, and you can see how we transformed from the start to the end. And this is very important. This example was a collaboration between, and here we talk as African about the collaboration. This was a collaboration between UNHCR, Stanford University, and one firm from New York. So we went there, we discussed, and we developed that approach, and we implemented later on in Rwanda, in Mugobgo camp. And that kind of collaboration we needed as African to develop such kind of things. And we developed also some models for the camp itself to show to the authorities, and that is the team that work on that project. The second example, and I want to conclude with that, in Nigeria, it's called Labondo project. It's a project that we developed. At the beginning, I said as an architect, is an occasion and opportunity to develop something new. So I thought about such kind of design. But after discussion with the colleague, they said this one is very complex. So we went to something simple, and we applied that simplicity, and we developed the project that accommodates more than 450 households, and that is the design for the rooms and sitting area. We have two approaches. One of them is cement block, and another approach is hydroform technology. And we upgrade some of the classrooms that at that time to increase the number of the classroom. Also in the market, we put some stand for the population, and IDPs and refugees can be there, and some communal centers that the population can do their meeting there. And then after the implementation of the project, Here is some blocks, and later on we have also some water, so 3 point for a water tank and the water, and then with the solar. So it's important to have accessibility to the water. This is some of the pictures of the site itself. Here is another view of, and then you can see at the right side, this is the existing health center. At the left side, that is a new health center that we upgraded and built it as a infrastructure for a population. Here is the same for the school, the existing one, the upgraded one, and the new classroom that we built it. And you see beside the health center. And this is another view of the Labondo project. Labondo consists about the road accessibility, access to health, to education, and also to livelihood. And is one of the good example. I have the chance to take the picture in my last mission there, and you can see the solution itself is one of the best solutions that personally I found is very important to take it in consideration. Having said that, as a recommendation, as Madame Nazik said, the main point that we have to take it in consideration as resilient Africa, the policy, the national urban and displacement policies, and we have to enforce on that. The planning, the area-based approach, the partnership is very important to have to build such kind of things. And also, in the end, we have to build on the people and restoring dignity of the population. I want to conclude with the same similar pictures that I took it, or some colleagues take when I was in Nigeria. The grandmother here, she approached me because she have an issue with her shelter that behind us, and later on with the partners, we assist her to get the proper shelters, and in the end, she is praying for us. Thank you again for this opportunity, and over to you, Mr. Venish.
Thank you, sir, for this intervention. My colleague Muhammad Al-Hadi, I believe whatever you are doing with your team is of utmost importance to the African context. So I won't comment for the time being on whatever you have mentioned. There's so much to learn from your experience and the collaboration that you've been mentioning. So we'll discuss that later. And let me just inform our attendees, the participants. You can write your questions with respect to the presentations being made in the Q&A part here. Okay, that's one. And second, I would like to acknowledge the presence of the chairperson for peace and security of ECOSOCC, okay, cluster chair, Mr. Boniface Chembe. He's here. He couldn't join us earlier. I'll give him the floor later on. But for now, without delaying any further, I would wish to introduce you to Dr. Rek, who is the regional director for Africa CDC, Southern African region. So Dr. Rek is a physician, a medical practitioner with many years of experience, and he has been addressing different kind of challenges. And in a way, it is in continuity when we look at what was just presented by Muhammad from an the infrastructure approach or the infrastructure perspective. It's interesting to understand what Africa CDC is doing, what is being planned, and how these are being addressed. Okay, so Dr. Rick, can I invite you to please, yeah, hello, Dr. Rick? May I invite you to further introduce yourself and carry on with your presentation, please?
Well, good afternoon, and my sincere apology. I'm
Hello, Chairman. Yes, we miss each other on the weekend.
Doctor, we can't hear you. Dr. Rick? Okay, maybe there is a technical glitch at his end. Let me seize the opportunity to reintroduce to you Mr. Boniface Chimbe. He is the chairperson for Peace and Security Cluster at the level of AU ECOSOC. So my colleague, Chair Boniface, may I invite you for a few minutes remarks why this activity we're doing online is of core importance, and how under your cluster we could address further the challenges being faced in conflict zones, and how we address also resilience when it comes to setting up infrastructure.
I'm having some internet connection issues.
Okay.
I don't know if you still can.
We can hear you, but we can't see you, or we can't see your presentation. Something is coming through. Yes, okay. Yeah, so Chairperson Boniface, we invite you later. Let us allow Dr. Rick to continue here. So the floor is yours, Dr. Rick.
No, my apology. Please confirm if you still hear me.
Yeah, we can hear you, and we can see your screen as well.
No, wonderful. My name is Dr. Lul Rick. I'm privileged to work for the African Union. So specifically for Africa CDC Regional Coordinating Office that is being based in Lusaka, Zambia. So my presentations may not be very long because I'm multitasking, but this is briefly what is the Africa CDC is for some of you that may not have the privilege of knowing. Africa CDC is an autonomous health institution of the African Union Commission, established specifically to support public health initiative of the member state, in particularly to strengthening capacity of their public health institution to detect, prevent, control, and respond as quickly and effectively to the disease threat. Thus, the function was mandated by the head of the state for Africa CDC to help all the 55 countries in our continent. This brief map, it shows you the history and why the Africa CDC was established. I'm going to point the 2013, 2014. That was the beginning of the Africa CDC establishment ideas. When Ebola in West Africa surprised the whole world, and the outbreak that brought so much fear. So later that year, the head of the state, they decided to have Africa CDC to establish. So that's the history. It's a history that was established out of challenge to address. And because of this, today we have Africa CDC to support. Okay, this slide is maybe very, very congested, but it's the most important slide from Africa CDC work, based on all those lessons learned globally, regionally, that the existing health systems, they never work, and they consistently left Africa behind. And that's why that call was made, called the new public health order for our continent. And it has 5 pillars. And one of those that we need to establish the national public health institution in any country. Number 2, also to expand the local manufacturing, which is the vaccine, the diagnostic, the therapeutic, the medical supply. Number 3, we need to strengthen the public health workforce. Without workforce, even if you have all those infrastructure, nothing will work. And not only just the doctors, the nurses, the epidemiology, but all the way to the communities. Most importantly, the increased domestic health financing, which is called Abuja Declaration, a call to every country in our continent to contribute at minimum 15% of their national budget must be allocated to health. Last, we need to work together in a partnership. We call it respectful action oriented partnership. So this briefly the backgrounds and the backbone of the work of the Africa CDC. Coming to the subject matter, in the face of humanitarian crisis, in the face of the civil war and conflicts, in the face of the climate change, the provision for the healthcare become profoundly challenged and perhaps even impossible. Either the challenge is a humanitarian crisis resolved as a war, or is the climate change or the national disaster. All of those, they have negative impact on our health. And there's no any better way to go around it. But we need to prepare because some of those are predictable based on the history and the world. Allow me to give you some specific humanitarian crises and the war and national disasters and displacement that can significantly impact the disease and dynamics. Number one, with any one of those, they will be associated with increased risk of the infectious disease and outbreaks. Number two, there will be spread of the waterborne diseases due to poor sanitation and access to the sewage. Number three, also the outbreak of vaccine preventable diseases due to disrupted vaccine program. Number four is increased transmission of the diseases like cholera, typhoid, and malaria. Number five, there will be difficulty in detecting and responding to any disease outbreak due to damage of the health system. So all of those, despite is the origin of the conflict, the result is the same. The access to the health system will be interrupted and life will be lost unnecessarily. So again, this is the impact of all the war, the national disasters, displacement, just name them, like previous speaker talked about it. The healthcare facilities, which is the building, the infrastructure will be affected. The access to the water and sanitation system will be also affected. The communication system will be affected. Roads and transportation networks, electricity and the power grid, all of those will be affected. Once they are affected, the result is this destruction can have a long lasting impact on communities, hindering access to the most essential services that we need for our well being. Allow me on the next two slides just to share with you the impact of the public health events during humanitarian crisis. This is very specific to the humanitarian crisis. So the outbreaks that will happen, either they will increase in number or the severity. And in this slide, I'm comparing 2025 and 2024. As of this month, Africa CDC has already reported 132 health events compared to the same times for the whole year of 2024, Africa CDC reported 219. In the middle, you see the red ones. They are the most severe ones. So far this year, we have 37. And in total, out of those, the yellow one, these are very, very mild. And if you look into all the African map, you see all those colors in the maps. And the most top outbreak in 2025, one of them is cholera, is mpox, is measles, is dengue, and the laissez fever. And all those five outbreaks or diseases are linked into the circumstances of humanitarian crisis, access to the infrastructure, access to the water, and so on and so forth. This slide is specifically to humanitarian crisis in Goma, in DRC. It's one of the most countries this year, from last year to this year, affected by the mpox. And it's like the hot spot for the mpox because of the ongoing humanitarian crisis from January to now. It has been the hot spot for all, and it's become very difficult for the access of those who need the help to access it. And it's become very difficult for all the health partners that desperately want to save life. It become impossible. This is the armed conflicts, a good example from South Sudan, a country that I was born and live and work there for many. Because of the conflicts, they will be deliberate from authorities at least to bomb some of the infrastructures. And you can see this one not very long ago. I believe it's like 2 months ago. Intentionally, a hospital being run by the MSF was bombed, and 7 people at minimum, including the children, lost their life unnecessarily. So also, not only just we have seen the humanitarian crisis, we have seen the war, the civil, but similar impact, you can see it also from national disasters as a result of the climate change. And this is about the impact of tropical cyclone Shido in Malawi and in Mozambique. And you see also similar impacts. Malawi experienced the effect of tropical cyclone Shido for 14 to 16 last year. The cyclone made a landfall into Malawi through one of the districts, but the result is the same. It's damaged the health facility and also destroyed the medical supply like the drugs and vaccines, and most importantly, affected the access to some of the health facility that really saving life. And these are some of the photos from Shido, the cyclone in Malawi and also in Mozambique. So again, this is the impacts. It will affect the water, and when the water system is affected, it will also destroy the sewage system, the sanitary facility, and the water pump, and disruption of the piped water system. The result is the same: the spread of preventable diseases and interrupted the services. And most importantly, there will be loss of life, which is sad and preventable. It's the same slide. These are the same two. I talk about it. But again, you look into the impact of the armed conflicts in the East DRC, make people to run away to the places that are not familiar to, and they would subjected them to all the health risks and outbreaks. This is a similar to situations about DRC, but most importantly, specifically, even some outbreak that is happening everywhere, like cholera, for example. If you compare the cholera in the countries that has ongoing conflict or humanitarian, you'll find them the cases are more, people are dying unnecessarily compared to some of the country with outbreak, but they have a stability. And these are the country that has been affected so heavily this year with a cholera. And if you see on the right, there's 3 countries that are the most affected. All of those, they share one thing: humanitarian crisis and lack of access to the services. And one of those is South Sudan, Sudan, and DRC. They are the most affected simply because there's a disruption of all the necessary services and lack to access of the safe and clean water combined. So in this context, you can say that providing healthcare in humanitarian crisis, conflicts, and climate change is a huge undertaking. It's complex, it's critically, importance on what to do, within that health system to be able to save life, which is the most important one. So these are some of recommendation we truly believe that could help. And one of those is to have infrastructures resilient. And when we talk about infrastructure resilient, from the design to the construction, you need to design them in mind. This country or this area is at the risk of cyclone, is at risk of uh, a national disaster. So we need to invest in building resilient healthcare infrastructure that can withstand crisis, including designing facility with emergency preparedness in mind. So when you start thinking about designing a health facility, you need to consider all those at the inception phase, even before you start construction. Number two, also some of the strategies that also work to save some life is, in particular, like place like South Sudan, mobile health unit. Utilize, also design them to be able to be resilient, mobilize clinic or health unit to reach affected population, especially in area with the damaged infrastructures or difficult to access in health. Number three is also you must have temporary facilities to establishing temporary health care facilities that can quickly set up and provide essential services, particularly for those services that may need surgeries and the cold chain. All of those, you need to design them inside of at the design. So at the end of my presentation, I think the ladies and gentlemen who have the privilege to be on these calls, our call as an Africa CDC, an institution of the African Union, that we need to think the health in the lens of the new public health order. What are the issues that are affecting our health and how we can be able to address them specifically? And it's a call for this generation, the generations of all of us who are on this call. Either you are public health, you are engineer, you are a lawyer, you are finance, everybody has a role to play in how to live safely in our continent. In wisdom word of none other than Nelson Mandela, when he said, there's a time for generation to be the great. There's a time for generation to do the right things. I think this is call is relevant to our generation to be innovative, to be creative, and how to address some of those unique challenges using the technology that we have an access and we have also opportunity to do it. Otherwise, the history is not going to be kind to all of us. And working together, sharing our ideas is an excellent to make sure that we all work together. So with this, thank you again, and I will hand it back to moderator. And thank you for all for your time. Over to you, moderator, if you still hear me.
Dr. Rek, many thanks for your insightful presentation about Africa CDC and highlighting the gaps again with respect to medical facilities and infrastructure. And it goes just in continuity with the earlier presenter, Architect Muhammad. And I just have one question for you for now. How much time do you have with us? Because I know you have a busy schedule. I would have wished that we engage with the next speaker and then we take the questions. Would you stay with us for the next hour, Doctor? Can you confirm? Doctor Rick? Doctor?
Again, I will be. I'm not going to be available like speaking. I can put myself in mute. If there's a need, I will come back to it. But thank you again for for this innovative meeting. You should be so proud. They're thinking outside the box. The infrastructures that we truly need for our continent. How do we make them resilient? We know exactly our challenges, but we all need to work together for the health to be resilient. It's not only the doctors, it's not only the public health, but engineer to design this water sewage system that will also be resilient. We need to have also the building, the clinic, all of those. They will not come from doctors. They will come from the engineer, the water sector, and finance. So everybody, when we come to health, everybody has a role to play. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. So, without delaying further, I have now the pleasure to introduce to you architect Donatien Kaseye Kalome, who is an acclaimed architect and entrepreneur from the Democratic Republic of Congo, based in Kinshasa. So architect Kalome is also the president of the Africa Union of Architects, which is the mother body of the professional practicing in the field of architecture. He is focusing a lot on conflict reconstruction, urban resilience, as well as mining community regeneration, and so on. So his experience and insight about this very specific subject that we are tackling today is very key to us in the process. Like Dr. Rake said, we need experts with experience and vision. So may I now invite Donatien Kaseye, okay, Mr. President, to simply start with your presentation.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur
Thank
le
you
modérateur.
immensely, Mr. Moderator, for giving me the floor.
Alors, avant d'entamer mon propos,
So before I say anything,
je souhaiterais apporter la réflexion suivante. Le sujet que nous
I
avons
would like to start by saying that the topic which we are discussing about today is both serious and preoccupying. Resilience is our usual behavior as architects. But when this resilience has to do with conflict, it comes with some questions because it involves some factors to take into account. And when we look at conflicts in wars, I observe that barbarism and human wickedness are highly difficult to anticipate. Within the African continent, we find it difficult to include in the way we think wars and conflicts. That's not a naive stance compared to our current position, but we must take into account all phenomena which are beyond our will. Wars and conflicts are the decisions made by people leading African countries, thinking resilience in a context of conflict is not an appeal to more conflicts, but instead, I believe what we should do is to work to avoid conflicts within Africa and keep in mind that Africa is lagging in various terms. So these observations from the outset did not prevent me from working on the topic which was assigned to me in here. I will give you a summary of my reflections. The vital role of resilient infrastructure in shaping a conflict-resilient Africa, the point of view of an architect.
Pourquoi parler de résilience aujourd'hui?
Why should we talk about resilience
Parce que
now?
l'Afrique fait face à des crises récurrentes.
Well, because Africa faces recurring crises, armed conflicts, mass displacements, climate disasters. Also, because infrastructure is often the first to suffer and the last to be rebuilt in the aftermath of the conflicts. But ultimately, because architecture and urban planning must anticipate, absorb, and recover from shocks.
La définition de résilience, d'une infrastructure résiliente, pardon.
The definition of the term resilient infrastructure is as follows. It is an infrastructure that can withstand shocks, recover quickly, and evolve in the face of uncertainty. These infrastructure should be inclusive, sustainable, contextual, and rooted in local realities. It must also extend to buildings, networks, public services, and social facilities. The previous panelists in their presentations drill down into the details with concrete examples attesting to this. So, what is the link between conflict and infrastructure or vulnerabilities? Conflicts destroyed the built environment, schools, hospitals, housing, and roads, while the lack of sustainable infrastructure in the aftermath of conflicts fuels social divisions and territorial inequalities, which in turn serve as new sources of new tensions. My brother Mohammed Al Hadi spoke about the case in South Sudan, and we are in the Democratic Republic of the Congo with much examples on this matter. So here you have an illustration of an image taken in Goma at your left, and at your right you have an illustration of infrastructure resilience. You can see the number of people in one classroom in Goma, in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. So we decided to investigate the topic from the perspective of architects, and we need to focus on the strategic role of architects. We must understand that we are not just engineers, we are designers of social and territorial resilience. We stand at the forefront to think, design, and catalyze built environments supporting peace, reconstruction, and sustainability. We must make sure to translate people's aspirations into protective spaces. Moreover, it's important that we contribute to conflict prevention through greater spatial equality. So I will take it all over, preventing conflicts through greater spatial equity. We will also be involved in, or we must also be involved in humanitarian design, project management, post-conflict analysis, and solutions, as my brother Muhammadi told us. Resilient infrastructure is tantamount to lasting peace. How do well-designed infrastructure reduce risks of conflicts? Through increased equitable access to essential services, reducing competition for resources, promoting social cohesion in towns and rural areas, and ultimately through the creation of places for dialogue, care, and learning. Another concrete example of positive impact
active social architecture.
We have a study center called Active Social Architecture Team, which constructed modular schools in the DRC. And these are infrastructure built with local material, and we build them on an ad hoc basis based on the needs. and the changes. I think in Burkina Faso, we also have some housing units for displaced persons. So we make sure that when the displaced people return to their initial locations, they can just integrate into the existing urban structure. So we do not need to think further because these will be reused by local communities. The African Union of Architects as a catalyst for change. The vision of the African Union of Architects is to use architecture to promote peace and social cohesion. That's part of our organization's objective, which comprises 44 member states, and it was established since 1981. It is also about creating a Pan-African skills network for resilience engineering, and also train young architects in risk prevention and post-conflict reconstruction. What are the obstacles to overcome in this resilient approach?
You're in 2 meetings.
In Africa, the main bottlenecks are as follows: lack of long-term strategic planning, under financing or lack of financing of social infrastructure, the low involvement of African architects in major political decisions, the standardization of imported solutions which fail to meet local realities. Recommendations to decision makers are as follows. First, we need to institutionalize the resilience approach in public policies. We must secure a systematic involvement of architects in territorial planning. We must also encourage the use of vernacular or local materials and techniques. And finally, we need to finance African research and innovation. A strong Africa starts with resilient foundations. What we plan and build today shapes the peace we will have in the future. So, to get back to my opening words, it's important that we start by thinking ways to avoid conflicts instead of focusing on how to adopt a resilient approach in the face of such conflicts. Now, as a conclusion, I believe Africa must be the architect of its own resilience. Our cities, villages, and infrastructure must reflect our capacities to rise up and move forward. The African Union of Architects stands ready to support the African Union in this very noble ambition, and through my voice calls for closer collaboration between our two institutions. It would be remiss of me to conclude without inviting all of you, considering that we have been discussing resilience today, and that will be the subject and topic of the 14th Congress of the General Assembly of the African Union Architects from August 27 to 30, 2025 in Kinshasa. The theme of this Congress is as follows: the resilience of African cities. And the first sub-theme is the resilience of African cities to mining and industrial activities. And in this regard, we will have to rethink mining policies in the short, long, and mid-term in order to come up with solutions to the current situation, which is prevalent in the eastern part of the DRC and whose remote and immediate cause is mining. Shop resilience of our city, thus increasingly the continent is faced with cases of floods, inundations, which initially were experienced with a 100 years difference, and which today are experienced on a yearly basis. Unfortunately, our infrastructure are not designed in a way to address these new realities in a proper way. So these will be the themes of the 14th Congress, to which you are all invited in Kinshasa from August 27 to August 30, 2025. I thank you, and I look so forward to meeting you in Kinshasa for the next steps. Thank you, and over to you.
Président Donatien Cassé-Calomé, pour votre intervention.
Thank you, President Chairperson Donatien Cassé, for your words. So, to take us back to the summary or takeaway lessons from all presentations we have had from all experts approaching several perspectives, and you're reminded that the very first presentation was by Mr. Mahamadi, an architect who approached the topic from the perspective of possible migration and displacement. He tried to discuss the ways and principles we need to take into account when building appropriate infrastructure to respect human dignities. And I think there are several questions people must have now, specifically pertaining to transition, and we may have many displaced who want to return to their areas of origin. How do we address this? And Dr. Riot mentioned that they are there to support in health terms. But unfortunately, they lack the health facilities, and these services can only be provided with the support of planning experts, architects, and engineers, because we need to plan everything pertaining to water supply and also avoid any forms of contamination, but also focus and take into account all aspects and factors pertaining to waste management and water supply. The third presentation by the architect, Mr. Donatien Cassé-Calomé, underscored the role of the architect, and he hammered it home that Africa should stand as its own architect for its future. This is a call to action, saying that we are the architects of our future. We need to address the challenges and take into account all the factors he has outlined. He further mentioned that the African Union of Architects, which comprises over 40 members, stands at the disposal of the African Union to support the institution. That's also the case for Africa CDC in the health sector. There is therefore room for dialogue and also for drafting and devising a roadmap which will serve as recommendations and guidelines to be put forward to our heads of state and government, also to come up with an effective implementation roadmap. So that was, in a nutshell, the summary of all our presentations we had today. And prior to that, we had the speech by the chair of the cluster for social affairs, who shared her experience with us. But now, before moving to the Q&As, and I have noticed that there are several questions put to our panelists and to ECOSOC, I will here invite the Secretariat to take a look at the Q&A to sort all questions pertaining to ECOSOC in order to answer them in due time. But now I will switch to English with your authorization.
Peace and security. Okay. Mr. Boniface Chembe, if you can hear me. Okay. So, Peace and Security Cluster Chair, you have the floor to share your views based on what you've heard from our three key speakers, and then we will move to questions and answers.
Thank you so very much, Mr. Moderator. A very good morning to those who are still in morning time, and a very good afternoon to those of us that have just gotten into the afternoon sessions. Allow me to simply say all protocols observed and apologize for having internet challenges in the morning, hence my delay in joining you. But the internet challenges speak to the subject matter of our discussion today. Infrastructure, resilience, but also challenges that they pose. So whether in war situations or in peacetime, we need resilient infrastructure so that we are able to go about our business in an effective manner, as it were. Moderator, allow me to first and foremost commend you as chair, but also your cluster for coming up with this incredibly innovative topic, which I must confess is overlooked, for the most part, notwithstanding the fact that we not only do we have a specific continental instrument that seeks to address issues of infrastructure development and conflict, but also we have got global policy frameworks in that regard. So, for example, the African Union's Agenda 2063 does provide a very clear linkage between infrastructure development to conflict prevention as well as regional integration. Similarly, the United Nations, through the Sustainable Development Goal number 9, industry innovation in the infrastructure, does recognize infrastructure as a peace enabler. So the fact that you have been able to do something that already has some kind of policy frameworks for us to work around, but yet has been excluded or marginalized, if you will, in terms of debate and discussions, and they make it possible for all of us to convene, it is something that deserves a lot of commendation on your part. Allow me to simply reflect on a couple of things arising out of the brilliant presentations made by Mr. Mahamat, Dr. Riek, and also our colleague from the DRC. I think in summary, and listening very carefully to what they have all been saying, it is clear that there are pathways that link resilience infrastructure to peace, but also stability. And these pathways, as they put it, focus on a number of issues. One of them, especially that was stressed by Dr. Riak, is this issue of access and equity, really ensuring that we have equitable access to services, e.g. water, transportation, which not only helps to reduce grievances that fuel conflict, but also help mitigate the conflict situations once they do take place. The second prism or area where there is a linkage between resilient infrastructure to peace and stability is that of economic opportunities. The mere fact that in times of war, the first target is infrastructure. Once war ends, the last issue to be sorted out is infrastructure. and economic opportunities afford the reliable infrastructure that stimulates trade, employment, investment, reducing incentives for violence, as it were. And this is why when we talk about post-conflict reconstruction, the focus tends to be on rebuilding resilience. Infrastructure in that particular regard is extremely an important component of peace building, but also recovery. And the related point in terms of post-conflict reconstruction is that these reconstructed systems must be not only inclusive, but also conflict sensitive to ensure that they avoid reproducing pre-war inequalities, as it were. So that's an incredibly important aspect. The other issue is that of social cohesion, that infrastructure that connects communities helps promote interaction, helps promote integration, but also a shared identity. And this social cohesion, in my view, must be not only during war times, but also during peacetime. The idea of resilient infrastructure must be an all-weather friend issue, because even if you are in peace and you don't have reliable internet, it's very difficult for you to foster social cohesion. You cannot interact, you cannot contribute to that shared identity, if you will. But the last issue, listening from the three presenters in terms of linking resilient infrastructure to peace and stability, is the issue of crisis response. And I think Dr. Riek really did emphasize on this. So resilient systems must help manage natural disasters, but also crises, and thereby contribute to helping prevent the escalation into conflict, but also the spread of diseases, which is something that is cleverly highlighted in the cases of the DRC, both Sudan as well as South Sudan, as it were. So arising out of these linkages, clearly they did highlight the risks that poor infrastructure does bring about to development. And of course, there were a myriad of risks, but just to highlight a couple of them, that we must not ignore local dynamics, which may end up triggering disputes over various issues such as land displacement, but also may be perceived favoritism, as it were. But also that local context. So, for example, Mr. Mahamat, when he was presenting his infrastructure design for the space in Rwanda, it was deemed to be complex, so it has to be redesigned. So, ensuring that we do not ignore local dynamics is an incredibly important aspect of ensuring that there is no risk involved where infrastructure development is concerned. Although this issue did not come out too pronounced, I think it's an important risk that we must consider. The issue of corruption and mismanagement in terms of infrastructure development can also undermine legitimacy, but also trust in the governance process. And I think you could have a sense, you could have a feel of all these in the three key presenters, but also in what my sister chair for social services, I believe Madam Osman, presented as I listened in very carefully. So as I conclude, I think it is important to take note that clearly there is a nexus between infrastructure and the conflict, and that infrastructure can be a target, but also a casualty in terms of violent conflicts, issues of destruction of bridges. Our colleague from the DRC mentioned these, power grids, hospitals, and Dr. Riak mentioned this, and so on and so forth. And that conversely, weak or absent infrastructure can exacerbate conflict drivers such as poverty, exclusion, marginalization, as well as inequality. So we must be proactive in ensuring that issues of resilient infrastructure vis-a-vis conflict are addressed. And I think platforms of this nature are incredibly paramount. Chair, not to take too much time from what is already an incredibly exhilarating discussion, allow me to conclude once again on a note of commendation to your vision as cluster chair, but also to the idea of involving other sister clusters such as peace and security. So on behalf of the peace and security cluster, we are extremely grateful for you having extended an invitation to us. I apologize, I've got battling a very bad flu. I hope I've been audible, and allow me to simply stop here and allow for the deliberations to take suit. I thank you.
Sure. Thank you very much, Chairperson Boniface. So, housekeeping. So, we do have a list of questions. So, I will be inviting the head of programs, Nana, if you are available. We do have a series of questions, or basically also comments that relate to ECOSOC, okay? And then there are general observations. I've not seen specific questions about a few when it comes to how to become true partners in planning and implementation and so on. So I will react on some of the questions or comments listed there. But could you, Nana, head of programs of ECOSOC, to please take the questions or comments that are related to ECOSOC as an organ of the AU?
Yes, yes, Chair. Yes, Chair. So, would you like me to just read directly from the Q&A, or would you share them
Whichever
with
way
them?
is fine with you, okay? If I can read, but I think it's not necessarily efficient. It depends. If you want me, I do it.
Okay, it's okay. Let me look at them and go through them. Yeah. So there's a question on how ECOSOC works with African CSOs. Can you clarify its role? What is ECOSOC? ECOSOC is the civil society organ of the African Union. So we work as a civil society parliament. We bring together different voices from civil society for the purpose of providing advice to the African Union. So whatever the AU is doing, ECOSOC is there to bring the voices of civil society to support the work of the union. So that is essentially how we work.
So maybe if I can be helpful on the second one from Mohammed Benajera. So there are a series of comments. I've tried to read them all, okay? But basically, if I can summarize the comment, it's related to field actions and impactful, I would say, results on the ground, and how can ECOSOC engage to address critical situations like you have in the Sahel regions. I know ECOSOC just held a very important webinar on the subject matter of Sahel. Maybe you could respond accordingly.
Yes, I think Mohammed is correct. I think when you look at the current geopolitical landscape, the Sahel has been is going through a particularly challenging time. And we know with the political transitions that are taking place at the moment in the Sahel, challenges. There's been issues of insecurity mixed together with issues of governance, unconstitutional changes of government. So it's clearly an issue. I think Mohammed is right to identify those issues. I want to highlight that there is a number of interventions that are taking place at the institutional level. So at the ECOWAS level, when some of the countries were still in ECOWAS before they left, but also beyond ECOWAS at the African Union level. So what we want to do as ECOSOC is to make sure that we are able to support these ongoing institutional processes with civil society input and support. And which is why, as Vinesh just mentioned, just last week we had a town hall on the political transitions going on in the Sahel and the role of civil society. So I think Mohammed is right to identify that this is an area that requires a lot more attention. And ECOSOC has begun the process of convening, ongoing civil society and non-state actor participation in all of these processes. Thank you.
Thank you, Head of Programs. So if I summarize the next question from Madame Fatma Teni from Libya. So basically, it's about strengthening, a partnership and technical capabilities and competencies to have like real partnership on ground to address infrastructure, urban infrastructure, water, transportation, and health. So basically on that one, I would wish to address the question here to Donatien Kaseye Kalume, okay, who has spoken about partnership. I don't see Dr. Rake here, so he could have spoken about healthcare, but maybe Donatien, can you address the other part about partnerships? I can repeat the question. How can
Oui,
the
pardon.
institutional, yeah, you've
Oui,
seen it.
please, yes.
Repeat, okay. So one question from Madame Fatma Teni from Libya, who represents the Libyan African Integration Organization. So she spoke about civil society organizations playing a vital role in connecting local communities with decision makers, especially in conflict and disaster zones. So how can their institutional and technical capabilities be strengthened to enable them to become true partners in planning, implementing urban infrastructure projects from water and transportation to health and education to enhance local resilience and ensure sustainability of vital services?
One final point on the three groups. So as I mentioned in the chat, I'm happy to go along with the themes as they have been proposed.
Donc, si je comprends bien, donc c'est
Yes, if I understood well, Madame Fatma is part of civil society, right? And her question is, how can we strengthen civil society capacities and technical capacities in order to respond to challenges or requirements by partners? Is that the case? Yes. Yes, strengthening partnerships.
Écoutez, donc nous avons malheureusement en Afrique des gouvernements.
Fortunately, in Africa, we do have governments that look for solutions of intersect issues within their countries. I mentioned foreign models that are copied and pasted in Africa. We apply them in compatible and compatible with our own issues. As far as the African Union architect, we decided to improve our curricula in professionalization of our domains in order to respond adequately in view of those challenges. When I spoke about partnership with African Union, I was trying to say that we find out that most of the times our leaders take part in meetings, be it at the international or regional levels. They go to meetings without the presence of experts that we are. And I'm wondering, at the end of those meetings, how can those leaders think that they have really addressed challenges or they have really understood the stakes, risks, and challenges faced by countries if they do not participate with their experts? So this is the main concerns and the advocacy at the African level, that's African Union level, that we are trying to do. We want to serve as a technical body for our government. We want to be a technical body at the African Union levels, but also to implement the same collaboration with different members within individual countries that make up the African Union. So this is what I can share with respect to the lady from Libya. Thank you.
Your microphone, my dear. Your microphone.
Yeah. Thank you, President Donatien Kassé Kalume. And I believe in what you've mentioned just now and what you said earlier. It's about indeed a call that experts who we are as architects, but not limited to architects, but other expertise, be part of that kind of a platform where we can act in an advisory role and that can fully play our position in our respective fields to enable those resilience, those infrastructure that are supposed to be resilient, definitely. So, which leads me to the other comment made by Gilbert from Nigeria. So, the National Secretary, Nigerian Infrastructure Development Association. So it's just a general comment about interdisciplinary approach. So here, definitely, this is very key in terms of comment. And here, I would like to make a proposal because the African Union of Architects is looking for definitely to engage in dialogues with other professionals so that we can create a bridge here. This is one. And at the same time, at the level of the African Union, ECOSOCC, the Cluster for Infrastructure and Energy, we need inputs, we need people having the relevant expertise and experience. So I believe there is a provision under Connect to ECOSOCC. So I'm talking under the guidance of my head of program here. He could maybe elaborate on that, how we can invite other experts to join in, those who are not GA members, so that we can have meaningful contribution. Your microphone is deactivated. Yeah.
Yes.
Now, yeah.
Thank you. So I think this is a good point, and this is the reason why we have the clusters. So we always acknowledge that we don't have the totality of expertise within ECOSOCC. And indeed, one of the reasons why we appreciate the work of dynamic cluster chairs like Vinesh is that they are able to bring into the work of the union as much expertise, as possible to benefit what we are doing. Because ECOSOCC is not existing just for itself. ECOSOCC is there to make sure that we are able to access the skills and the expertise of civil society to benefit the work of the greater union. And so for those that are interested in joining the work of the ECOSOCC outside of the clusters or outside of the GA, we encourage registering at the Connect to ECOSOCC, which is a link that we have on our website. We sometimes put out a call for registration for people that are experts in different areas to just register with us, so we have their names and their details to join our database, so that when we have activities and work that is relevant, we are more than happy to bring them into it. We are trying to be as open and as transparent as possible. So everything that we are doing, you will find on our social media. So that would be the quickest way to get a sense of what we are doing on a day-to-day basis. So if you just reach out to us through our social media channels, we'll be happy to bring you on board. But the main point I want to highlight is we want ECOSOCC to be open. We are working for ECOSOCC to be open. And as long as there is expertise out there in civil society, we want to access that expertise. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Head of Program. So, Mr. Gilbert, do reach out to ECOSOCC, and you may address to me through ECOSOCC, so that then we can touch base. Otherwise, I will find a time to drop my email address in the chat box. You can also reach out to me directly, and we can engage further. So the next comment from Alpha Phi, so from Senegal, who is also a member of the GA, okay, and under peace and security. So it's a general comment whereby, again, it's laying emphasis on the role of private sector, civil society organizations, experts, amongst others, on how we can work together to drive the change we want, okay, and make such recommendations that our decision makers can can align with what we see as professional experts, and not just experts, because one thing which is important, everything we're discussing is for our people. So if in the process our own people are excluded, so I'm not segregating experts from our people. So our people is a grassroots initiative, and that's why the civil society is important here to bring whatever is happening on the ground and bring it at the level of the ECOSOCC as a platform so that we can have this dialogue. And the dialogue that we are currently having, this is the very first step. Okay, if there is no dialogue, we cannot engage, we cannot criticize, we cannot propose solutions, and we cannot devise a roadmap. So at least this virtual platform is giving us the opportunity to voice out, which link me to the other GA member, Mr. Mohammed, okay, Binat Jera, okay. So your comments are very valid, sir. Thank you for that. And it is important to come forward with suggestions as well so that we can consider. And our role as ECOSOC is advisory, okay? We do not have field actions as such, okay? The advisory opinion that we can formulate or policy framework we can put forward to our head of states, we can influence political decisions that can then be implemented, be it at continental, regional, or national level, okay? So that's something very important. And here as well, I invite you, Mr. Mohammed, to reach out to me when it comes to resilient infrastructure topic so that we can address these, okay, fundamentally. In terms of other comments, we have one from Mr. Zedel Katembo Ngolo. So it is addressed to Mohamed. I think, Mahamat, it's to you. C'est en français. Pourquoi en RDC, le UNHCR...
Why in DR Congo, UNHCR is implementing temporary shelters. For example, in Rwanda, we have it with bricks, and other places is in different format. Mohammed, would you like to respond? Merci. Thank you very much for the concern. In the beginning, I was explaining that each context has their specificity. But if you talk about Burkina Faso, for instance, I was there. I was working in Burkina Faso. I was part of the initiator of some shelters that we put in place. It's a way to build with some sort of roofing. We implemented the project in Akaya, but in Burkina, we have a different context. At the beginning, humanitarians can't do much. And then there's also the problem related to accessibility. But in Rwanda, it's a little bit different. This was dedicated to refugees, and there was a defined plan. I've given you the example of a well-organized planification. How can we move from emergency towards transition? But in between, I gave you the example of Rwanda when I visited. There are camps that stay there for over 7 years. In terms of strategy, it moved from sheets to changing those infrastructures. So it depends on context, and sometimes you need to take it into consideration. Each context can be different. I gave the example of what we were able to construct in Syria. Money was disbursed, and at the tune of $15 million. And you could see that infrastructures were totally different. So each country has their own reality. Thank you very much. Thank you as well, Muhammad. All right, we still have 10 minutes left. Let's try as much as possible to address other questions.
So we have one question from Mr. Karubachu from Ethiopia. Okay, he is asking how we can be helpful to CSOs, okay, NGOs, working on the ground to address peace building, climate change, food security, and emergency. So, and how we can localize efforts, okay, at grassroots or for grassroots organizations. So I think once again, here, I take this question myself. We've launched the call, okay, be the head of program, Nana, okay, whenever there are challenges, there are issues, there are questions or proposals, it can be channeled through ECOSOCC, and ECOSOCC will definitely be channeling those requests to the respective clusters. But there is an attempt today that clusters do not work in isolation, but in close collaboration. And that is one example today that we are aiming at doing. Like I say, it is not just to talk, it's a dialogue with the aim to be able to find strategies on how to be more supportive to CSOs, okay? So you've shared your link, but again, do reach out to me, okay? The Secretariat and myself, okay? And then we will definitely be giving more insight of what we can do together. The next one, Ibrahim Mahat. So financing model that ECOSOCC does, allow me, head of programs, I take that one too for CSOs. From my own opinion, I'm a GA member and now chairing one of the clusters. CSOs financing by ECOSOCC, it's not something which is in the prerogative of the ECOSOCC. It is an advisory body of the African Union, okay? It's not a financing body. But I think what CSOs can do is whenever there are specific cases, we can study those together. If it is infrastructure project and so on and so forth, we can address it as a cluster under infrastructure and energy, discuss what can be done, and we can make formulations, we can make recommendations. So this is what I believe, because a pool of donors and funding, etc., unless Nana, you have something more to add to that one, okay? I think this is it. We can only be an advisory organ rather than a financing institution.
Yes, I'm in agreement with you because the nature of ECOSOC is such that we are a policy advisory organ. So by that setup, we don't really do a lot of direct project engagements, on a day-to-day basis. Sometimes we can identify specific things to do through a project. The way that our work goes on a day-to-day basis is more policy generation and advice. We are definitely not a financing agency. We also, request funding from the member states and sometimes from international partners. So we are not really set up to do the job of project financing. However, if let's say you're working with a cluster, with Binesh, and then through the cluster we found that maybe we could explore a joint resource mobilization for a very specific initiative, then we could explore that as well. But on a day-to-day basis, I think I concur with what.
Thank you, Head of Programs. The next question is from another GA member, which I'm happy to see him here, Mr. Abdul Rahman from Sierra Leone. Okay, so the silent conflict between men and nature, or nature and men. We are full swing in climate change. We've talked about that challenge. We have earthquakes, we have flooding, we have storms, cyclones and so on. So this is where the architect Donatien Kalume mentioned that we need to be preventive in our approach. So whatever design is being done, be it architectural, infrastructural, okay, we need to engage upfront, okay, to understand geographically what is happening, okay, so that we can be preventive. But in any case, and it's anywhere in the world, men cannot fight nature. So that's why we can only cohabit with nature and adapt ourselves. So the question of adaptability, this is a bit what we are engaging with in this dialogue, okay? And I would also say that, yeah, when it comes to the refugee camps and internal displays like in Congo DRC, I think what the presentation made by both Mohamed Al Hadi and Donasekase Kalume highlighted a bit of those challenges, and in particular, Dr. Rake from Africa CDC also talked about what is ongoing there with regards to health facilities and infrastructure. So the challenges are really complex to address. Okay, so this is something that we need to be mindful of. Okay, it's not a one solution oriented question today. Okay, so it's multifaceted. So it's only dialogues and input from people like yourself and other experts and the ordinary men and women in Africa that can bring those change. So the next one is from Foyinka Inge. Sorry if I'm not pronouncing the name properly. So from Nigeria again. So School of Crime Prevention. Yeah, so School of Crime Prevention, maybe it is something that is more addressed to my colleague from Political Affairs and Peace and Security. I've seen in the attendees, the chairperson for Political Affairs was there. Okay, maybe he can read that, and if time permit, I will give him the floor. Okay, sorry if I'm speeding because we are time bound. Alpha Phi again. Yeah, so it's again general comments which are highly appreciated. Okay, so so the point is about diversity in leadership at the level of the ECOSOCC. So yeah, I think all of these are dialogues again that we definitely need to engage at the level of the GA members and clusters. Let's come back to that, Alpha Phi. And I know you've been one of the active members also on the Zoho platform. So we can definitely engage further there. Okay. And why not organize another webinar, specific topics where we can engage. Okay. So question about when will the ECOWAS road network start? We are again an advisory body. Okay, we are not the one that, when I say we, I mean ECOSOC. We are not the one implementing the road projects, but this is a broader, I would say, question at the African Union, other organs such as PIDA and so on and so forth, and then the regional economic blocks that can really answer such a question. Okay, sorry if I keep it simple, but I'm happy that we take that again in our cluster discussions to understand the overall strategy, even if we have challenges in the Sahel region and so on. But what happens in West Africa as a whole, in a holistic manner, definitely it's important. Madame Bella, okay, who is from an organization dealing with disabilities in Cameroon. So how to become a member of ECOSOC, okay? I believe the way you registered, Madame, you can get the contact details of the ECOSOC Secretariat. You can address there your query and you will be guided, okay? So there is room to have a registration of CSOs, okay? There is the right platform for that. So please reach out to the ECOSOC here. And maybe if Secretariat can just share the email address in the chat, that would be helpful. Yeah, question to the architect from Congo who emphasized on conflicts, okay, and which are basically a result of greed of leaders. Well, I'm not sure he mentioned that as a greed of leaders. He said that we are at the origins of the conflict, we as men and women in Africa, okay? So the point here is, as an architect, okay, his role, okay, my role is to design sustainable building suitable to local conditions. It is difficult to put consideration in the effects of conflict on those buildings, okay? So I just want to see the question. To what extent is even the AUA involved in procuring peace in conflict regions? Well, this is a very reason why we have the president of the AUA here, also to share his own vision and experience. But let me highlight that at the level of the African Union of Architects, we had established a committee which addresses emergency response, which could be emergency response with regards to natural disasters or other kind of issues. So here, architect from Zambia, architect Edward, I advise you to reach out to the AUA, okay, so that then we can see how you could bring your own knowledge and expertise and help in that process, because we need helping hand. Okay, we are not here to do everything alone. We can only do things all together. Okay, so this is my call to you. Tete Jacinta. Okay, so women and girls and children in resilience and infrastructure think tank. Okay, given from two presentations, they are the most affected. Yeah, I think this is something which I believe reason why we also had as one of the speakers, Madame Nasik Osman, okay, because she is handling the social affairs, okay, and she's also a woman and she knows how this is affected. So I believe that we can only engage again in those clusters. So Madame Nasik, if you could share your email address in the chat, so that Ted can reach out to you and we can engage further with her and her organization. That would be definitely, I would say, something positive for us. Wow, the list of questions is quite long. Secretariat, my question to you, my time is over for the webinar. We had 2 hours. How much time am I left with so that we can address maximum we can?
Chair, I think I will leave that to your discretion. Maybe we can do another 10 minutes if you're able. If you're not able to get to everything, we can commit to sharing the answers to the group. If we have a way to reach the registrants, we can do a Q&A based on the questions and share with the registrants. Yes, thank you.
I think this is what I was thinking of as well.
I think that might be better, yeah. Because
Yeah.
because you might not be able to get to everything in 10 minutes anyway.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I think we will just capture the questions, answer them, and then share them.
So before passing back to you, Head of Programs, we have 3 hand raised from my fellow colleagues, cluster chairs, and I think I need to give them the opportunity to intervene. May I request Secretariat? Oh, I can allow them actually. We have Eyole Monono, okay, Sarah Garbi, and Muhammad Harun. So I allow the 3 of you, cluster chairs, to join me with your comments here with regards to what we addressed today and messages you have to the attendees. And then Head of Program will wrap up the session, okay? So for all the other questions, like you've heard in the chat, Secretariat will compile and will try to have the relevant reply to you and share back as we launch the invitation to you. We'll share back that same way. So let me invite the 3 cluster chairs now to intervene. So Monono, chairperson, you go first.
Thank you very much, Chair Denish, for this very important meeting. I'll just be very fast. There are just 2 things I want to bring. I think when we look at the conversations that have gone on in this webinar, 2 things I want to raise, which maybe also concern the cluster of political affairs. The first is when we look at the aspect of infrastructure and looking at humanitarian camps. When we look at it, I think this conversation is very important and it's going to go a long way for us to contribute as the African Union is reflecting on the African Union Humanitarian Agency. I think that the contributions that we are having today, we go a long way to fit into the body of this organization that the African Union is trying to put forward. One, when we look at this, our camps, looking at the first presentation for Muhammad, we see that one of the few things that we see is that, one, the resources are scarce. And if the infrastructure is not taken into account, it might lead to further conflict. And so we see situations where humanitarian camps have become nesting ground for ongoing terrorist actions and the rest. So I think it's very important for us to link these two aspects to see how can we enhance infrastructure in these camps so as to give a better opportunity for those who are in this camp to have the full potential and the resources needed for them to be there. The second thing I want to also link it between human rights violations and when we look at these camps, because the way some of these camps are being structured, if they don't take into consideration architectural and even infrastructural frameworks, we see human rights violation where maybe women or young girls have to go to long distances to fetch water, where the camps do not have some certain privacy. So we face those challenges. So I want to just say that this conversation is very profound. It touches so many clusters, and I think it's key at this moment where we are thinking to give contribution to this new organ that is coming up. Thank you very much for the time.
Thank you, Chairperson Monunu. May I invite the Deputy CEO, actually, the Deputy Presiding Officer, not CEO, Mahamat Harun from Central Region for your intervention. Tu as invité DPO.
Merci bien, Venish.
Thank you immensely, Venish. I followed all presentations and conversations with much attention and interest. And I would like to express myself in Arabic. Once more, I would like to thank you.
I've heard all the interventions with very big interest. Since the infrastructure and construction is very important, before I talk about this topic, especially in regard with the planning and policies, I would like to talk about the crisis that took place in the Sahel area and that took place because of the conflict between leaders in Africa, especially in Sudan. Nowadays, there are refugees and a huge number that's present of the refugees. Because of this disaster, they are on the street. However, the international community haven't looked at this topic. And 2 days ago, the Chad government talked about this topic, and they said that they will close the borders between Sudan and Chad so that a large number of refugees would not come. So this topic, to just remind you that these crises occur, and after this crisis there will be displacements because the mistakes of human beings. So we cannot predict this greatly. In addition to that, we find that some prediction from the UN agencies talk about the flooding, but there's nothing that we can call insisting from the African government to find solution, knowing that the floods are affecting Cameroon, Nigeria, and there are some alerts till this moment. However, from the planning and building side and prediction of this crisis and decision making, until this moment, nothing has been done, and there's a lack of action toward this crisis that's lacking. I hope that the ECOSOCC, as a platform for the civil society organization, will work on such project through your group and cluster that has done and that has prepared this webinar so that we can prepare the government so that they tell their people about the destruction or repercussion of this natural disaster. I would like to end with
You're
a
still working.
question regarding the policies and planning. What are the policies that we need to adopt or that the African governments need to adopt in order to ensure the development of infrastructure and that the infrastructure would be flexible and resilient against conflict? How can we include the civil society in construction and maintenance of resilient infrastructure? What's the role of the international committee and financial institution played that they can play in this regard? I hope that you can answer this question, and I wish you all success. Thank you so much.
Thank you, DPO. Definitely, I don't want to be too long because we are really completely late on schedule now. We have our colleague, Sarah Harbi from Tunisia, okay, and chairperson for rural development, and supported to give her also the opportunity to speak. But Sarah, please be brief, and then I'll comment on what Muhammad Harun has said, and so that our head of programs can sum up the discussion today, and we also advise all the attendees on what we intend to do next. The floor is yours, Sarah.
One.
Vous pouvez parler, Sarah.
As you say, your people, they talk too much. Talking.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Vinish, for this webinar. It was so interesting. Really, we've enjoyed the choice of the subject. Also, I would like to, you already presented me, so I would like to address my question to Mr. Clamé. So I will switch in French. Monsieur Clamé, vous avez parlé de l'architecture dans le domaine.
So you spoke about the architecture, resilient architecture, and considering that I chair the cluster on the urban and rural areas overall, I would like to know from you, do you have any opinion on the specific regional needs? That is one. And secondly, could we collaborate to maybe provide you with some data which you could need, considering that I am already a member of this I am working already in this particular field, and that our cluster works with the urban areas to build resilient infrastructure. I know we are behind time, and that was my question, but allow me to also thank the cluster for organizing this meeting. Thank you. So thank you. Quick reaction for Mr. Muhammad. I think the question you put pertaining and when we can come up with recommendations dependent on all and leaders of the clusters and leaders of ECOSOCC. Standing committee in order to come up with a practical plan to achieve much more output in results. I know that we can't all alone solve this situation, and that's not, by the way, the objective. What we want to do is to adopt a grassroots approach and involve the civil society organizations as well as population within the continent. And as far as Sarah's question is concerned, I think that the ball is in your court since the beginning of your mandate. We just need to agree on how we can strategically come up with a specific work session in order to invite all those who attended this session and more people in a bid to focus on development in rural areas. The objective will also be to address the climate change issue. And I think, in a nutshell, that's what I can say in an attempt to answer your questions. One question was highly important, and it was put to Mr. Mahamat. That was in the Q&A, that is to Mr. Mahamat Al-Mahdi. And as we have said already, we will get back to you with all answers to the questions you have asked. There is another question pertaining to how to connect to the ECOWOC ECOSOC platform. And on this matter, the Secretariat will provide you with details. There are two things. We have the standing assembly. You should be elected to be a member of this assembly. However, this doesn't mean that other members of the civil society organizations cannot be active. Instead, that's why we are here today. We're working towards more inclusion. We want to give you the floor through these platforms so that your voice is heard. I would like to thank all panelists, Mr. Mahadi, Mr. Donasian, and Dr. Riek, for their presentations. I also want to express my gratitude to Mr. Boniface, to the chairperson of the Peace and Security Cluster, as well as Mrs. Nasik Usman, chairing the Cluster on Social Affairs. Without further ado, allow me to also thank the Secretariat and all interpreters, as well as Dr. Abraham for the facilitation and all the background work regarding logistics management. My apologies if I am forgetting anyone, but I would like to express my gratitude to everyone who worked directly and indirectly. Allow me now to give the floor to the Director of Programs at ECOSOC for his final words and for guidance on the next steps. Thank you, Mr. Chair. As you have already thanked all the major stakeholders attending this seminar, this webinar, I will take on your heels and
Chairperson Vinesh has thanked. I want to thank especially also game because we do this for the benefit of civil society, and so we thank you for having made time to be with us. In terms of the next steps, we are going to be working with the cluster under the leadership of Chairperson Vinesh in terms of how we're going to capture the outcomes of today's very rich discussions and how we are going to develop, the follow-up to that. So whether we need to do some advocacy around that with the policymakers and the member states and the AU Commission, or we need to develop some follow-up actions specifically. We're going to be working hand in hand with Cluster Chair Vinesh so that we are able to revert with the follow-up plan. I want to also encourage everybody that this should not be the end of your engagement with ECOSOC. If maybe this is the first time that you have joined an ECOSOC activity, please leave your name so that we can reach you, or take note of our information. I already left our email address on the chat. Look out for all of our social media activities, because this is how you become part of our network going forward, because there is a lot of interesting things that we are doing at the level of civil society. So on behalf of Mr. William Carew, the head of Secretariat, who is still in his meeting with the diplomatic group, I want to really thank Chairperson Vinesh Shintaram for the leadership that he has demonstrated from the beginning, and bringing to make sure this event has been a success. We thank you very much, Vinesh, for everything that you put into this. I want to thank the members of the ECOSOC GA and ECOSOC Standing Committee who are here, Sarah, DPO Muhammad, also chairperson of the cluster on peace and security, Boniface, and most importantly, also chairperson who has been developing this program with Vinesh. Thank you so much for everything that you've done. And with this, and also chairperson of political affairs, Eyole, who is here. I wanted to make sure that everybody is duly recognized. We thank you so much, and we look forward to the next time. Thank you. Votre micro, Vinesh.
No, je dis thank you. So it's time to take leave. Thank you, ECOSOC, once again for this facilitation. It's just the first step, so we'll continue to engage. and bring more impactful action. So this is what I want to say in conclusion here. So thank you again. I think it's time to close the session.
Thank you, everyone. À la prochaine.
À la prochaine. Merci.
Au revoir.
Thank you, everyone.